All right, now I think we are live. What's up, everybody? This is Lamika here. Welcome to the Real About Entrepreneurship. And it got real in here because I am trying to figure out software that is new to me. And so we had some challenges, but we are here. And so welcome to Live with the Real About Entrepreneurship. And in a previous video, I told you I would be bringing on sharing my information of the who about the who in who have helped me in order to achieve the dreams or the goals that I've set. And so one of those was me starting getting back into real estate, and I identified that mobile homes was the way that I wanted to go. And I hired two coaches, and one of those coaches, I have them on live tonight, and that is Calvin Ahia. Calvin Ahia is who helped me make $47,000 in 90 days. So Calvin, welcome to the Real About Entrepreneurship. Thank you for bearing with me.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm very honored to be on here. I'm excited about this. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. So, Calvin, I just want to get right into, this is the Real About Entrepreneurship. And I know that you have, had your entrepreneurial journey. And if you could, kind of, I guess, give us an introduction to how you came to be an entrepreneur and, where you're going with that.
Yeah. Again, thank you for having me. So I'll try to give you the short version, right? A little summary about myself and where I got started. So back in 2010, the company I was working for was getting ready to sell, and they were getting ready to basically close their doors. Right? That's a short version. So at that time, I'm in my mid 30s, looking for a career change and trying to figure out what it is I was going to do. Right? My background has always been in some form of management or sales, pretty much most of my adult life. And so at that point, I'm trying to figure things out. Now, also knowing that this change was coming and trying to figure out what my path is, I had, I'm not even sure how I got introduced to it, but I had just read Rich Dad Poor Dad. So that again, I was back in 2010. I read the book. It was a light bulb moment for me, reading that, as I'm sure it has provided a lot of inspiration for a lot of other entrepreneurs. But that's the first time that I had identified myself as an entrepreneur, that realized what exactly I think I'd been one all my life, but that book helped me realize exactly who I was, right, with my identity. Once reading that, that's around the same time I attended my first REI meetup here in my state, in my city. And during that meetup, the speaker went over multiple strategies, right? Wholesaling being one of them. So I was able to learn a lot, and that was kind of the beginning of my journey and trying to figure out where my career path was going to go. At the time, my intentions was to be a house flipper, right? That's my originals. Is I was going to get into real estate. I was going to become a house flipper, just like these guys on HGTV. It's going to make a bunch of money, and let's just say it didn't go according to plan. So I'll say that, right? And what ends up happening is over the next couple of years, I actually find myself, transitioning from my job. I spent probably almost 2 years, although it seemed like it was a lot longer, uh, chasing after becoming a real estate investor, and that was a tough journey, right? I spent most of that time doing what we call in the industry analysis, being stuck in analysis paralysis, meaning that although I was taking a lot of action and doing things to learn and connect with people and all that, what I wasn't doing is I wasn't moving my feet while I was learning. I was literally just jumping from one thing to the other, trying to find the perfect scenario, the perfect strategy, the perfect game plan. And while looking for that perfection, what I realized later is that I didn't get any traction because I was reading books, I was searching online, I was researching, I was talking to a lot of people. So in a way, it made me feel like I was being productive. In actuality, because I wasn't actually taking true action, right, and starting to implement the things that I was learning. I got stuck in analysis paralysis for a while, right, and unfortunately, that didn't pay the bills. So I had to figure something out, wife and kids, depending on me. and I end up getting back into the workforce. Right, I've got some bills to pay, and at that point, it was like 2010, 2011, maybe. I ended up taking a job with Planet Fitness and became a regional manager for that company. And I worked there while trying to figure out how I was going to get out of this rat race,
Mhm.
right? So it was always a temporary fix for me, but I had to find a way to pay bills and and make some income while trying to figure out my path, right?
Right.
Well, along that way, so this was going into 2011 was when I started with them, and going into 2012, I'm still trying to figure things out. I'm still studying to figure out how I'm going to get into this house flipping game or become a landlord or whatever, and just trying to break through. And that's actually when I came across mobile homes,
Okay.
right? Now, it wasn't the first time I had come across mobile homes. I had come across them before during my analysis paralysis era, where everything that came across was attractive to me. So I got very easily distracted, right? And just couldn't really set my feet to gain any real traction. And it wasn't until this point where I went back into the workforce, started thinking about how I was going to get into the game, and I came across mobile homes again,
Mhm.
right? So I'm working full time, and they just caught my attention. It made as I looked into them, they made sense. Number one, there was so many mobile homes where I'm in Louisiana, and there's so many mobile home parks and so many mobile homes in my area. So there definitely wasn't a lack of supply. And I found out early in my mobile home journey that there wasn't a lack in demand either,
Right.
right? That both supply and demand were both there. I
Right.
just needed to find my way into the mobile home game,
Right.
right? And that's really where it started. That's where the curiosity and the interest started to grow for me.
Mhm.
And although I was still looking at other opportunities, this one really started to. I actually came across a guy that I know you're familiar with. His name is John Fedro, right? And if anybody wants to follow him, he's got tons of content on YouTube. And John has made a name for himself in the mobile home game with the seller finance model,
Mhm.
right? Where he buys these homes, fixes them up, and then resells them on monthly payments, like basically creating a note, almost like selling a car. And he's made a fortune off of that, and really made a really solid name for himself in this industry. So my intentions was to do what John was doing.
Mhm.
Right? And this is early in my career. This is 2012 or so. I'm
Right.
working full time, trying to figure out how I'm going to get in. At the time, John had actually had a mentorship program, right? And I think it was probably a couple $1,000. And I decided, I made a decision that uh, um, although I love John's content and everything that he was providing, and he definitely inspired me to keep going, I decided that I could probably figure this thing out on my own, right?
Yeah.
And that was probably one of the biggest mistakes I made. I should have hired a mentor from the start.
Right.
But I ended up getting into a deal, my first deal. And to give you the short story, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have a background in repairs or construction, like some people that get into rehabbing.
Mhm.
And I just jumped into a deal. Free mobile home in a park that did not have to be moved. The park owner was okay with me
Mhm.
flipping it, selling it, renting it, whatever I wanted to do, as long as she got her lot rent.
Right. Right.
Right. So I really told myself at that time, like, how could I go wrong? Right.
Mhm.
Like, it's a free home, doesn't have to be moved, and the park owner's okay with working with me.
Right.
So I jumped in, and $11,000 later, it was supposed to be $5,000.
Mhm.
That's what we had calculated, and it turned out $11,000 in, and we're not anywhere near the finish line. So I actually end up, after taking a beating on this home and just spinning my wheels basically, and not seeing any end in sight.
Mhm.
I'm double over budget, right? And I'm just looking to stop the bleeding. So I actually sold the mobile home for $2,000.
Okay.
With 11,000 in, I sold it for 2,000 to stop the bleeding, and I walked away.
Wow. Okay.
Right?
So we
So
got
that's how I started
right. So
in the mobile homes, which was really
right. So we got to take a step back. So because also work a 9 to 5 job, and I talk a lot about even though you want to be an entrepreneur, that doesn't mean you have to leave your 9 to 5. So when you got started, you were still working your job, knowing that you wanted to do be somehow in real estate full time. So what did
Yep.
you do? I guess what gave you the confidence to know that you wanted to go down this path before you ever when you first got started?
I guess when I first got started, after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, like I said, it really spoke to me. That book spoke to me. It made sense. It made more sense of like who I was, and I was able to get clarity on that. And I think that book had a lot to do with it, because I could feel everything that Kiyosaki was talking about in that book.
Yeah.
There were things that I believed, but I couldn't quite put into words, and it's not a topic that you can discuss with just anybody,
Right.
even the closest people to you,
Mhm.
right? And again, he there was some things he said that I feel like I already felt that way,
Mhm.
but I never had anybody put it into writing for me. And when
Okay.
I read it, I was like, okay, this is me. This is what I am. And
Okay.
then obviously he introduced me to a different perspective of how to look at things like money,
Right.
like time,
Mhm.
right? And energy and other people's resources and all those things opened me up to all those concepts. And I said, man, this totally makes sense. So I knew then that I was an entrepreneur that had helped me. Like I already was one, but that made me realize exactly what I was.
Mhm.
And I was fine with it, right? And I knew, and I could tell I was going to be different from most people, that I was going to be around.
Right.
That wasn't well, this wasn't an everyday thing. Most people chose the traditional path, and I was different. So it made me open my eyes, seeing that there were other people like me out there,
Mhm.
right? That were either just as genius or just as disinformed, one way or the other.
Right.
But there were other people like me, so that
Right.
really opened up my mind. Um,
And what?
Now,
So.
real estate was going to be my way,
Uh huh.
not mobile homes. In fact, go ahead.
No, no, and that's what I was going to say. So real estate was going to be your way, but not mobile homes, because that I'm very similar in that I just came across a video on YouTube and it was about mobile homes and I had never thought about it. So what led you to that path of mobile homes being it for you?
Well, so that mobile homes, what I saw as I dug into it was very similar to the things that I was learning about single family real estate,
Hmm.
right? Traditional real estate. A lot of similarities in it, where you were providing housing. There were ways to monetize mobile homes like single family homes. I started to learn whether you wanted to fix and flip, for cash. If you wanted to rent them out and become a landlord, there was that opportunity. And this is before wholesaling or anything ever came into it. This is just seeing that, okay, well, this is similar to homes, but what I noticed was some of the differences. Like the point of entry was a lot cheaper. The rehab costs was a lot cheaper. The process was a lot simpler.
Hmm.
And like we said already in the beginning, is that the supply and demand was there. That was evident, right? So it got me just asking more questions of, okay, why not maybe smaller, but accessibility to inventory, to motivated sellers, to rehab costs is lower, all that stuff. It's almost like it kind of just made sense, right?
Right.
If you were able to look at it at scale. So it really got my interest. But I'll tell you this, even whenever I even whenever I started doing deals with mobile homes, so this is back in 2013 going into 14,
Hmm.
before I started wholesaling, um, I had, I was able to confirm all these things and kind of figure out. But I had decided that, okay, there's definitely some money in mobile homes.
Yeah.
There's definitely a demand and there's opportunity. So I can do this. And once I figure this out and make a little money, then I can get back into real investing. Right. So that was my plan. Mobile homes was kind of like just a bridge,
Right.
just to help me get to where I was really trying to go. It was never going to be my thing. I was never going to be the mobile home guy.
Right. I mean, well, now you're the
That
mobile
was
home
definitely
king.
definitely wasn't part of the game plan. Um,
Yeah, but so you've
And
become.
it's weird, and so even with that, like I was like, okay, let me do this, and then I can transition.
Mhm.
Except I never transitioned back. I
So
just
no,
stayed here.
and I get it, and now you've become the mobile home king. And but in that time of you getting started, what did it look like with you balancing your job and your new venture of getting into the mobile home space?
Mhm. Man, so it was tough. There's no doubt about that. I want to, and for anybody that's going to be watching this, I just always like to keep it real and transparent, and don't like to mislead people. It's hard.
Yes.
It's hard, and but you find ways. Like if you want something bad enough, right? You figure things out, right? You kind of, and I'm kind of like that. Like it's like that mobile home that I jumped into. I make this joke all the time. I'm a follower of Tony Robbins, and I always make a joke that Tony Robbins owes me $9,000 because I followed his advice and I took massive action and just jumped in, and I got burnt.
Right.
So I always make that joke, but the truth is that although that was a major setback in my journey, especially right out the gate,
Mhm.
um, a lot of my successes has also been from the fact that I'm not afraid to jump,
Right.
right, and just get in there. So, but what made me, I guess, like what was hard, it was just like kind of get in there and you'll figure it out.
Hmm.
So I have a lot of belief in myself, right? Even if I don't have the answers and not everything's, I can't see everything with clarity. I just feel like if I just get and jump in the water, like I look at it like this. I know, like when I hear people say, and not to make fun of anybody or hope this doesn't offend anybody, but when somebody says that they drown, I mean, under certain circumstances, I get it, but like I don't understand how someone can't swim. I just don't. Like if someone throws me in the water, I'm not just gonna sink to the bottom. You know what I mean? I'm kicking
Hmm.
and I'm fighting and I'm gonna get to the surface and I'm grabbing onto something and I'm saving my life. Like that's how I look at it. So sometimes I feel like, although I don't know everything at this point, if I just jump in,
Hmm.
I'm gonna figure it out. Right. So that's kind of the mentality that I've always had.
Right.
That was helpful. But what I mean, what you're asking about, what that was like, trying to juggle everything, it was tough.
Hmm.
I was working a full time job, and my job was pretty demanding as a regional manager of a health club chain. We had 9 health clubs in Louisiana. My responsibility, like my focus was on all the clubs
Hmm.
and all the managers and all the assistant managers, and all the staff and all of the members and the corporate office and the owners and upper management. So I was that person that was in between everything. So I had a lot going on. I was 24/7 on call,
Hmm.
right? So juggling that, even when I wasn't on location or on my regular hours, if that phone rang and there was a problem somewhere, I was dealing with it. So that took a lot of my time. Wife and 3 kids. My kids are very active in sports. So I grew up, and did a lot of coaching and always active in that way. So how, trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to learn a new skill? How
Hmm.
am I going to learn a new business and all that? And I think the answer is really, I just found ways. And what that looked like is sometimes that meant me having to get up early in the morning before I went to work and get up and post some ads on Facebook or Craigslist as part of my, marketing strategy,
Right.
right? That might be doing something like that.
Okay.
Um, I've got sellers to call back, right? Because now I'm starting to do some marketing and I'm getting some traction. So when I'm going to talk to these people, well, fortunately for me, as a manager at my job, I had certain privileges that some people didn't. Like I can go and use my cell phone, or I can go in the back office or in the back storage area or in the parking lot or whatever if I've got to call people back, right? So I had to find ways to
Hmm.
do it.
Hmm.
Sometimes my lunch breaks was taking a lunch break and sitting in my vehicle,
Hmm.
on a phone call with a couple of mobile home park owners, and we're collaborating on how we can work together,
Okay.
right? Stuff like that. Like I just found ways. Um, there was also, after work, I would get off at about 5 o'clock,
Hmm.
and I already had it planned out that as soon as I left here, I'm going straight. I already had my route mapped out because I'm going to drive through a couple of mobile home
Right.
parks,
Right.
right? Or I've got some appointments after 5 o'clock.
Hmm.
Or I'm looking at mobile homes on Saturdays and Sundays. I would drive around on the weekends from dealership to dealership, shaking hands and making relationships and just trying to find, whatever I can do with my time.
Right.
Um, so it was difficult.
Yes.
Staying up late at night. That was another thing.
So when did you what year was this? What year did you get started in mobile homes?
So 2013, I did a handful of deals.
Okay.
I hadn't started in the wholesale space yet.
Mhm.
I was more doing, I would say, what they I get today, what we call creative finance deals, where I was actually buying homes on payments and reselling on payments. Right. So I don't know what you even call that strategy, but basically, I might pick up a home where the seller wants 2,000 down and agreed to sell it to me for 150 a month, and I've got a buyer that's willing to pay 3,500 down
Mhm.
and willing to pay me 250 or 300 a month, and I'm able to cash flow on it, plus make some money on the down payment up front on cash.
Right. Okay.
Right. So I was doing those types of deals as a way to get into the game. And then I took on that first rehab, and that deal set me back.
Okay. And
Right. So that
right.
2013, it was like there was some good and bad. Right. I figured some things out.
Mhm.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, so that deal in 2013 that set you back.
You had a question.
Yes. So that the deal that you did in 2013 that set you back, I guess what would you do different about that now?
Yeah, so with that, I mentioned that I had no experience with fix and flips or construction or rehab or anything like that, right? No background on it.
Mhm.
So what I do today, if I could do that all over again, the first thing I would do, knowing what I know now, is I would get onto Marketplace or Craigslist or anywhere, and I would find every for rent mobile home for rent in my area, and I would call all those people that posted those ads, and I would have conversations with them
Mhm.
to find ways that we could maybe work together on some deals,
Okay.
right? So that's what was missing. I had no mentorship. The people that I hired was straight off of Craigslist, and I didn't even vet them. There was no referrals that came with them. I didn't know anybody that knew them or anything like that, right? Just
Right.
complete newbie. I got onto I got onto Craigslist. I had conversations with whoever called me, and they responded to my ad. And the only thing that I wanted to know at the time is I have $5,000 to do this project. Can you do it for $5,000? And the first person to tell me yes got the job, right? So probably the worst way to vet someone, because most people, especially if they're desperate for money, they're going to tell you what you need to hear,
Right.
right? And then you'll figure the truth out later. So that was one thing. And I think again, what I would do different is go back, and I would contact someone that has done it before, and I'd contact these guys that have, maybe John Smith has 5 mobile homes for rent on Marketplace, and I noticed that. Then I need to have a conversation with John Smith,
Mhm.
and we need to talk, and I need to introduce myself. And perhaps what could have been done is maybe explaining to someone like that what I was looking to do, and coming in as maybe a financial partner and saying, look, I got about a $5,000. What are we looking at a project like this? Is there any way that you and I can collaborate?
Mhm.
Maybe I can pay for all the material. Maybe you take care of the labor, and maybe we flip this home and split the profits, and then we evaluate and see how we liked it, and maybe we rinse and repeat,
Right.
right? Something like that. I
Yeah.
would have done it. I wouldn't have done it on my own. I would have done it with someone else that I could have. We could have exchanged value some way, and we both could have profited from it. While I
Okay.
learned.
That makes sense. So, at what point did you realize wholesaling was the way you wanted to go?
Yeah, at that point. So again, that's what actually got me doing some of these creative deals. Is because I'm trying to figure out, okay, right, like this is the time for me to quit if I was going to quit, right? This was all the signs, and how the higher power telling me, look, get out of mobile homes. This is your sign. This is your warning.
Right.
But I didn't listen to any of it, right? Because what I had learned through the process is, although that deal failed and set me back, what I did learn is about the supply and demand, right? I did see that. I did see that there were tons of mobile home opportunities all around me, right? And then I also saw that the demand for it was high. So with that deal, and then I had done a handful of these creative deals again, where I was buying homes. I'd connect with park owners, and then they would, or park managers, and they would tell me when there was a situation, someone was either selling, or being evicted, and then I would come in and try to create a solution. And because I had just got burned on this one deal and trying to be creative on how I could get into deals, it really forced me to really be creative. It
Mhm.
challenged me. It's
Mhm.
like, okay, I got a wife and kids. I just lost $9,000. Right? There's no way I could go back to my wife and say, "Hey, you want to try this again?" So I have to figure out, how am I going to get into this game? I was like, okay, this works. And so, to answer your question, I was wrapping up 2013, towards I guess the middle to the end of 2013.
Mhm.
Handful of deals under my belt. I had this one flip that really set me back, and then I learned a bunch of things in the process. Right, so I knew supply and demand was there. I knew there was plenty of opportunity, um, where I can do more deals, but for little to no money out of pocket.
Mhm.
Right. And as I started to ask myself questions about what that would actually look like if I could pull it off,
Mhm.
what it brought me back to is that REI meetup I went back a few years prior, right back in 2010, after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, right, where the speaker talked about multiple exit strategies. One of them, he was able to flip these properties with no money out of pocket, just by connecting buyer and seller, and it was a process to it. And so it brought me back to that. And I said, man, it sure sounds a whole like that wholesaling thing that guy was talking about a few years back. If I were, then it got me, as an entrepreneur, you ask yourself questions,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And that's what empowers us or disempowers us, is the questions we ask ourselves. So because I'm searching for a solution and the answers, I kept getting closer and closer. And then I asked myself, and here's the self doubt that came in, right? Just because I'm human, and just like, all I see is we buy ugly houses, any condition,
Mhm.
fast cash for your house, you know. But I don't see anybody saying that we buy mobile homes
Right.
or anything. I don't see anything on Bigger Pockets,
Mhm.
right? Nobody's talking about it. This is before all the Facebook groups and all that. And I just thought, well, I told myself in the beginning, I guess you can't wholesale mobile homes. Maybe that's what it is. And
Right.
then I almost didn't pursue it.
Mhm.
But then the other side of me, the other voices in my head, got the best of me, because they kept saying, why not?
Right.
Who says you can't? And how is you don't see someone else doing it, and that voice started talking to me, and that day that voice won, right? So then I just made that decision and
Mhm.
decided that, what, back into some of the things that I had learned, and I started following people. There's a guy named Sean Terry, and I'm sure if any of your followers are big into wholesaling or house flipping, they probably heard of this guy. Um, but he's a big influence in his teachings, and I really started to look at it as like, why can't you do this with mobile homes? Like, I don't understand why I can't be done. So that's what I started doing. And so going into the end of 2013 is when I made that decision. Right. This was how I was. I know people are wanting to buy mobile homes. I know there's people that are desperate to sell, but
Mhm.
how can I wedge myself in between, to make a profit? And so that started.
Mhm.
That means that I started marketing,
Mhm.
right? And at the time, being limited on funds, right? Creative, right? Social media is coming up; it's getting more
Right.
popular. So the way I got started is literally posting on Facebook and on Craigslist, taking out ads there, and any other type of those sorts of apps. Is I was just posting on there that we buy mobile homes,
Okay. Okay.
right? And then I started messing around with bandit signs and hanging bandit signs, and that's where my before 2013 closed out. I can tell you that I was able to get 3 homes under contract.
Yeah.
right? So I was moving quickly and taking action. Unfortunately for me, those three deals tracks expired. So that was the downside of it. But the plus side is that it was practice for me.
Right.
That's how I kind of see it now. Sellers that was willing to sign my contract, so I looked at that as
Mhm.
progress. I remember the first contract I got signed. It was a lady that had like an off. It was a regular trailer that they converted into an office,
Mhm.
and they took down one of the walls and everything, and they were using it as an office business. It looked, I think it was a trucking business, and so this was the office for that business. And then now what they were doing, where they were buying the business was buying their own property down the highway,
Mhm.
and so they didn't need this. They were leasing the land that they were on. They didn't need the trailer anymore,
Mhm.
so they wanted to sell it. So I was able to go over there. That was the first time that I had explained what the hell I was doing to a seller and how my palms being sweaty when I was driving there, coming straight from work with my work uniform on. And I remember just sweating it out, like walking to the door, getting out of my vehicle and hoping that no one was here.
Right.
Like I just was nervous. And then when someone answered the door, I just remember really sweating it out. Um, I remember sitting in front of them after looking at the mobile home and then sitting down with them at their desk to discuss the process. And I guarantee you, I didn't breathe at all. I remember saying the whole thing in one breath, and the seller gave me no problems about selling my contract.
Right.
She just said, "Okay, sounds good."
Yeah.
Right. So I ended up signing it, and again, I couldn't was unable to help them, but I look at it as progress. Like I was able to, because I got those conversations out of the way and figured out, okay, no one died here, and
Right.
that this person I'm talking to is just another human being
Uh-huh.
with a problem,
Right.
right? And if anything, outside of maybe not closing the deal and getting paid, being the downside. Outside of that, the downside truly was that I couldn't help that person.
Mhm. Right.
That was the bigger downfall to
Right.
it, right? Aside from the money, is the fact that when I left there, I felt I felt bad about it when the contract expired, and she was cool with it. The seller didn't get upset, and I even checked back with her a couple weeks later, and fortunately, she was able to get her trailer sold.
That's
So
good.
she was happy, and she was grateful for me. She thanked me for trying to help her out, And we had a few showings. We just couldn't find someone to close the deal. But what I realized at the end of it, I felt bad because I wasn't able to help her, and that
Right.
weighed on me. And then I remember the weight being lifted when I called her, and she said she got it sold. And now I was happy, and I realized, okay, this is more than just about the money now.
Mhm.
Like this is people that really need our help. Um, the other deals I wasn't able to close um, due to looking back at it now. I can tell you that the problem was that I had no negotiating skills. I wouldn't even know what the number would be if I was trying to negotiate a deal because I had no idea what the market was like at the time. I didn't know what investor buyers would pay for it. I had no
Right.
clue, any of that type of stuff. So I literally just went in, and whatever the seller was asking was
Yeah.
fine with me.
Right.
I told them that I would help them get it sold and bring a buyer. And if they signed my contract, they were okay with it. I didn't negotiate. And I basically just put it on the market and slapped the fee on top of it and thought that's how it worked.
Right.
Except that's not how it
Yeah, that's
works.
not how it works. No, that is
So I
not
was able
how
to figure that out.
it.
And it wasn't until 2014.
Yeah. No.
No,
Yeah. No. No.
yeah. So
That.
that was the eye opener. And then eventually in 2014 is when I actually. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah. No. You're right. That is not how it works. And we've got a couple questions in the chat that I want to ask you here. Someone wants to know, does location matter when you're, well, Christine, thank you, Christine, for your question. Christine wants to know, does it matter your location when you're starting out?
Um, well, I would say no. I'm just going to say that the answer is no. that the location doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I pretty much like I do deals, I guess what we call virtually,
Mm-hmm.
do meaning remotely, and I do these deals in other markets, um, without actually being present. So I know it can be done that way. But there are some. I'll say this: as far as doing deals in your own market or close by you, there are some advantages to someone that is just starting off. Maybe that's what the question is, right? But there is advantages where you can actually go and visit the properties.
Mm-hmm.
You can go and shake the seller's hand and have a conversation with them face to face.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there's some value in it. But for me, because I've had so many of those conversations, I feel very comfortable doing it over the phone or through emails or text messages or however, that I've been able to eliminate that process of having to drive back and forth to every single deal.
Okay.
Right. So that's been helpful for me. But to answer your question, um, I don't think that, yeah, you know, either way, you can do it in your own market, or you can do this virtually.
Okay. And so yeah, Christine, I think that answers Christine's question. And so another question we got from Denise is, what would you have done differently on your first deal? So you talked about how it set you back, and you may have already answered this, but what would you have done differently on that first deal?
I would have teamed up with someone more experienced.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely would have done that. Hired a mentor in some fashion, whether it's just to hire a coach and pay them for their experience,
Mm-hmm.
or to partner with like a experienced investor that where we can figure out a way where we can both provide value. So an example of that is I had some cash to do my first deal. That $5,000, and I was hoping that was going to be enough, and we were going to fix and flip and make a bunch of money and rinse and repeat. But what I would do differently now is I would find someone with experience, and I would have offered something along the lines of, hey, let me pay for the material, you pay for the labor. I can learn from you. I'll find the deal, and you bring your experience. I pay for materials, you pay for labor with your guys, and then we'll put it on the market and flip it and split the profit. Right?
Absolutely.
That's probably what I would have done different on that first deal, if anything.
Absolutely. So that leads me to, that's how I came to you. I was, I had found a video, and it's I said, okay, I've been in real estate before, and I knew I didn't want to do it the same way. And so I came across this video on YouTube about mobile homes, and then I watched a video, and one of your star people, Nicole Briscoe, mentioned your name, and so I went to Googling real fast to find out who this person was. And so I came across your group on Facebook, which is Mobile Home Investing Full Time. And then, after being in that group, I realized that you were giving some real value. And I went out and put my bandit signs out, but I realized that I needed more mentorship. I needed someone that could answer questions for me in real time. And so I decided to join your Mobile Home Wholesale Academy. So can you talk to, how the Mobile Home Wholesale Academy and how you work with people who are looking to get into mobile home investing or mobile home or wholesaling mobile homes?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I'm going to start here. So there's a couple ways that people could tap in with me, and even other industry leaders if they're looking to get involved in mobile home investing. So a couple of ways, guys, is the first thing I would suggest. Lamika, you just mentioned it. Mobile home investing full time Facebook group is got to be one of the best resources available to newbie and experienced mobile home investors, right? So it's a Facebook group. We've got over about 14,000 members now from all over the country that do a variety of things in the mobile home space, from fix and flipping to wholesaling. Seller financing is a very big, very popular strategy in the mobile home space where people are basically creating notes, buying homes, rehabbing them, and then selling them on monthly payments. Some people invest in mobile homes on land. Some people invest in mobile home parks. There's movers and dealers and all kinds of ways that you can monetize. And the community is full of people of different skill sets, different levels and experience. Right. And the best thing I love about it is that it's a platform designed for people to be able to share, learn, and connect with others. That's basically what it is, right? So I would definitely recommend checking that out. It's a free resource. Ask questions. Use the search bar. Typically questions that are asked from a newbie, they've probably been asked multiple times, and people can check out the search bar and get some really good feedback. And we also do about 2 or 3 lives a month
Hmm.
where I get people, some of the industry leaders, to come on and join me, and they share experience. They inspire, ask questions. Where I just had Lamika on the other day. She was able to share her journey. So we have that. And if you check out the guide section, it's got all of our interviews and content there. So that's one way. Another free way to tap in is we're on Clubhouse. If you guys haven't heard of the audio app called Clubhouse, I would definitely check that out. We're on there every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central, right? And we do like it's a networking opportunity, and it's also a live weekly Q&A. So that's a great opportunity for people. You're looking to connect with somebody, to hop on there, and there is a replay option, so you guys can always go back and listen to episodes. But those are a couple ways there. If someone is looking for any type of mentorship, if they're looking to learn, we do offer a monthly workshop on wholesaling mobile homes, the second Wednesday of the month. And then we also offer a full lifetime full access mentorship, which is the Mobile Home Wholesaling Academy that you were referring to. It's our private Facebook group where we go over the 10 steps of wholesaling mobile homes. And we talk about it all, guys. I mean, everything from building a buyer's list, generating motivated seller leads, to management systems, contracts, talking to park owners, how to network in the mobile home space and build a brand and all that stuff. So we really go over all the details if anyone's interested in that. But those are probably the best ways to connect with me.
Great. And that's one of the things is, like I said, when I found out about mobile home investing, I wanted to find a mentor. And I had gone out and I gotten the signs, and people were calling me. And the first sign I put out, I actually sold those people. I actually got them on the contract, and I was able to sell their home. And so I closed 2 deals on the same day. But I called Calvin in a panic, and I was like, I have no idea what to say. And so the thing for me is, because like I said, I hired 2 coaches, and Calvin had the verbiage that I needed from a wholesaling standpoint. And when I heard him talking about it, I was like, that is who I need, because he helped me understand what I was doing, because I was wholesaling not knowing that that's what I was doing. And so I decided to, after being on mobile home investing full time, which is the free platform on Facebook, and all of the information that was there, I was putting it together, but I needed that extra step. So, at the beginning, I mentioned that, Calvin was a huge part in me achieving, making 47,000, a little over 47,000 in 90 days. And so, Calvin, what do you see someone that wants to get into it? Like, what action do people need to take? Because, people will hear this information and they'll say that they want to do it, but they really won't do what they say they want to do. I guess we can't move people to action, but what is something that would move you to action to take steps towards mobile home investing?
Man, I guess the first thing is really, I mean, I know you guys have heard about it in the entrepreneur space, is figuring out what your why is. Everything starts there. Why are you doing this? Aside from just making money, obviously we're helping people. But what is that, that deep reason why we're doing it? So for most of us, probably majority of us listening to this call, it's going to be our family or people we care about, right? That you're wanting. Most of us at some point, obviously, we want to make a life for ourselves, but typically, what's really driving us is our desire. Is that I've got a lot of people that I care about, that I'm looking to, that I want them to benefit off of my energy and my efforts.
Mm-hmm.
So that's because I've come into terms with that, and I'm very clear on that. That's the reason why I take action. Um, Is that what you're
Yeah,
asking?
and yeah, that's really it. And so, I know for me, I think I told you, I was sharing with you the other day that I have my vision board for my mobile home. So I have a focused vision board for my mobile home business. So I've set for 2023 that I want to have 100,000 in income specifically from wholesaling. So, I will definitely be getting back to basics of what I need to do to be able to achieve that. And so, as we wrap up here, I want if you could just share with those who are listening now and those who are watching later, like how they can get in, how they can reach you, and how they can find the groups that you have on Facebook.
Yeah, check out Mobile Home Investing Full Time. Look that up. Mobile Home Investing Full Time. I can drop it in the comments here too after the video. But you can check us out on Facebook and join our group there, and check us out on Clubhouse under the same name, Mobile Home Investing Full Time. We go live once a week, every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central, and it's probably one of the best ways where you could just. It's almost like if you haven't been on Clubhouse, it's almost like an interactive podcast, right? Where you can tune in to the topics you want to hear, to the speakers you want to hear, but let's just say that you can also interrupt them at any point and ask a question, or you can raise your hand and come up on the stage with that person. It's an audio stage, and you can, it's all voice. It's a voice app, and you can talk and ask questions like that. I've seen people and have witnessed people connect on there, buyers and sellers and wholesalers connect, and they go do. I know I have benefited from relationships that I built on that app and went off and did deals together with other people. So I love that. That's probably the best way to connect. But as far as getting started, I mean, what I would say, if anyone's looking to get started in wholesaling, what you want to focus on is really like where can you start, and where you want to start talking to buyers and sellers. That's like the number one thing, is being able to connect with the buyers and sellers. And I would tell anybody that if you're getting started, is to look at it as practice and start talking to as many sellers as you can right now.
Absolutely.
Right. That's kind of what I did when I got started and decided I was going to jump in. Is I just got on there, I got on the phone, and any seller that was willing to give me a couple seconds, I just hopped on and I had conversations with them. I screwed up a lot of those conversations. I didn't know what I was doing, didn't know what I was saying, but it was practice, right? For me, it was important. And I think for a lot of people, because some people are afraid to talk to people.
Mhm.
And when you start talking and you realize, again, that nobody dies at the end of the conversation,
Right.
right? And there's life beyond it, then you start to settle down and you're like, okay, they're just other humans. It'll be okay. And I think that's. Hey,
Yeah.
Lamika, I see someone here asking a question in
Okay.
the thing. I just wanted to kind of touch on it real quick because I
Absolutely.
think it's interesting. I see Denise James is asking. She's got a couple questions. One is, did you find it beneficial to create relationships with dealerships? Right. So I'm gonna say, I don't know if Denise is still on the call, but the answer to that question is yes, very beneficial. So what I'll tell your viewers is that when it comes to wholesaling, you got to get really good at branding, marketing, and networking. Those are the three things, right? Branding is basically creating a name for yourself in whatever marketplace you're in. In this case, it's the affordable housing market. Branding is letting people know like what value you bring to the marketplace, what problems you solve, right? And the way we get that message, our brand out there to everybody, is through two things, and that's networking and marketing,
Mhm.
right? Equally as important. So when we're talking about marketing, we're talking about advertising, right? There's different ways to advertise. To be able to generate inbound leads, you want motivated sellers contacting you, right? Now, I bring this up because the other side to that is networking, and that's just as important as the marketing piece. Networking is when you're out there building real leads, right? Where you're getting leads from people that just have you top of mind in your market because you're able to build these relationships with them. I bring this up because of Denise's questions asking about dealerships. So one of the things that we always teach our students is make sure, along with your marketing, whatever it is you're doing, that you're out there building relationships with movers, park owners, managers, realtors, other wholesalers, friends, family, chat list, right? So for me, just to kind of give an example, what I part of my strategy is whatever markets we're focused in, right? So this is something I started doing here in my market here in Louisiana, is I started contacting mobile home dealers. One of the things that I learned early in my mobile home journey is that these dealerships are not necessarily in the used mobile home business. Most of them are not. They're there to sell new mobile homes, right? But their only involvement with used homes is typically because they have a client that's trading one in order to buy a new one. So I want you to look at it like a car dealership. The same way you would drive in with your used car, find out what the trade-in value is, and then you try to apply that amount to the purchase of a new vehicle. It's the same thing for a mobile home, right? So I figured that out years ago. But I also figured out that most of these dealerships were not interested in that used home unless it's the only way that they can make that. So if they have to, they'll take it in.
Mhm.
But once I realized that they weren't interested in, what I started doing is I would contact them and I would ask them, I'd build relationships with them, and I would look to become a resource for them and their clients that had a trade in, right? And so what would I do? And what do I do today? Is the dealerships will contact me anytime they've got a trade in situation, and they'll let me know, hey, Calvin, I've got another client, Susan Smith. Here's her number. She's already expecting your call, right? But she's got a 2005 single wide that she wants to trade in. Can you give her a call?
Mhm.
Right. So, here's what I do is because they're putting me direct to client with them, I already know they're motivated, right? And that's one of the things we're looking to do is gauge their motivation. We're looking to build rapport. What happens is that that client has already built rapport through the dealership, and because they trust the dealership, then that rapport and trust is transferred over to me through that introduction.
Yes.
So it makes that part of the conversation easier for me. And then what we do is we look to offer them a cash offer for their mobile home. And if they accept, then we'll take the home and move it, and the dealership doesn't have to deal with anything, right? So the seller gets the money they need to get into their new home.
Mhm.
The dealership can now move forward with the sale of the new home without the headache of messing with the used home. So I've eliminated that off of their plate, and they don't have to mess with it. So it's really a win-win. And then also, and this is one of the things we tell the dealership is we let them know, look, if we can be a resource for you and your clients, just so you know, typically our cash offers are equal to or greater than the trade-in value. And once I tell the dealership that, they say, "Oh, really? Okay." They like that, and so I hope that made sense for you, Denise. But yeah, to answer your question, becoming friends with the dealerships in your area can lead to a lot of opportunities.
Absolutely. So with that answering that question, I'm so glad you saw that because that just reminded me or reminded me of what I need to do. Sometimes I'm a little nervous in calling dealerships, and I have leaned heavily on bandit signs. But you have that information right there. I'm definitely going to be playing that back so that I can pick up on how to be better with calling dealerships. I think I've called probably a total of 5 and got a little nervous and haven't called any back yet.
Yeah.
But Calvin is definitely right. The relationships with the building the relationships with the dealerships are definitely beneficial. And I know a couple people that use that, as Calvin mentioned, and it is very valuable. So that is a good question. And Jan Humphreys is in the building. Jan, we appreciate you coming. She says she highly recommends Calvin's wholesale course. Jan was a big reason as to me jumping into Calvin's wholesale course because she said, no, he is the real deal. And he has helped me build my business. So Jan, thank you for sharing that comment. I think we've got all the questions here, but if you're watching the replay of this and you have questions, feel free to put them in the comment section. And be sure to check out Calvin's group on mobile home investing full time on Facebook, because you will find some valuable information over there. There are a lot of people in that group. And if you have a question, I will suggest typing it in the search bar, because in that Facebook group, because I'm pretty sure somebody has already answered it. There are many times that I'm getting ready to type a question. I'm like, wait a minute, let me just type it in, because I'm pretty sure somebody has already asked that. That group is a great resource. So Calvin, we're going to get out of here. Is there anything else that you want to share before we end this broadcast?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, anybody out there, I mean, I guess the only advice I would have for them is just to go ahead and take action. If you're considering it, take action. Um, Wholesaling, I mean, look, for me, I mean, I'm a full-time wholesaler, but like I tell other people, like not everybody in the wholesale game, does this full time. A lot of my students that come to me are actually already active in the mobile home space. They're either fixer flipping or they're seller financing, and they're coming to me to learn wholesaling just to have another tool in their belt, basically. And
Mm-hmm.
you're going to find that because when you get into the mobile home space, every deal's a little bit different, and one deal might be a good fix and flip, and the other one might be a good wholesale, and the other one might be a good buy and hold, right? And there's a lot of different strategies. So that's why I would suggest like people tapping into wholesaling, because um, it's great for also building out your skill sets of talking to people.
Okay.
There's no way around it. If you stick with wholesaling long enough, you're going to get good at marketing and networking and solving people's problems. So yeah, I would just say take action if
Okay.
you're thinking
So
about it.
Calvin, we do have another question that I think is a very valuable one that I want you to answer. And Christine says, how much money should you have to get started?
Man, honestly, I'm going to suggest zero. I'm going to suggest zero, right? Um, and I'm going to tell you why. Because there's things that you will need. I mean, if you're looking to scale and grow a legitimate business and turn this from a side hustle to a full time gig, you're going to spend some money, right? Whether it's for marketing or for systems or websites or maybe hiring people and outsourcing tasks and all that. So it's definitely going to become a factor at some point. But the reason why I say zero is because if you start with $0, it's really going to tap into that entrepreneur spirit that's probably deep inside of all of us. It's going to force you to have to be creative, to be resourceful, and to rely on your ability to build relationships with other people and find ways to get this done. Like if I just said, okay, here's $10,000, go start your business, you're going to spend $10,000.
Right.
If I give you five, you're going to find a way to make it work on 5,000. Right? But if I gave you zero, it's when I had the money laying around, like that first deal, where I just said, okay, I've got five, I'm just going to spend it. If I would have been forced my hand with $0, which is what happened, right? I ended up losing that money, and again, I couldn't convince my wife to let's do it again, right? So I had to find a way, and because I was limited on monetary resources, I was like, okay, how am I going to do this with no money?
Right.
How am I going to do this and find a deal with little to no cash out of pocket and make a profit? Okay, well, I'm going to wholesale. Well, what about marketing? What if I don't have money to buy bandit signs? Those things can get pretty expensive. And then with the metal wire, stakes and all that stuff, that cost can get up there. And if I'm going to do it every month, that means I got to buy bandit signs. Well, what about advertising? What about that? Those types of stuff. And it's going to force you. So you can start with $0. That's the answer. There's not a single thing about the business that can't be done with no money out of pocket. Right. So that's what I would say to that is zero.
I got you, Calvin. I should have asked you that before I got started, because I spent some money. Now
Referral leads.
I didn't spend a lot of money, but I spent some money because there were some free things that I wasn't willing to do, which was call parks and that kind of thing. That made me scared. But no, those are definitely good. I should have asked that question when I first got started. How do I get started with zero?
Well, I think if you've got like the thing about doing it for free too is because in the beginning you're also experimenting and testing and measuring different things. And instead of throwing a bunch of money at it, if you know just be a little bit more resourceful until you can figure some things out, maybe do some deals,
Mhm.
right? And then eventually, what you start to do is you start to become clearer about what your process
Mhm.
is, which
Yes.
everyone should be. Most people should start there. They should look at what's it going to look like to close a deal from start to finish. Write that process down and be clear on that, so that later on, when you start throwing money at it, when you start advertising on Facebook or Google Ads or hiring someone to do your SEO and all that type of stuff, and you got websites and VAs and whatever, um, you at that point, when you're throwing money at it, you should have a clear process to what you're doing,
Absolutely.
or else you could be moving backwards, right?
Absolutely.
If you're building the team and don't have a game plan,
Mhm.
you know what I mean?
No, and that makes total sense. And I led with bandit signs because the course I bought before I found you said, bandit signs were the way to go. And bandit signs have been the way to go for me. I think I got started with probably less than $500. Definitely less than $500. I'll probably say with gas, bandit signs, the stakes, I probably spent a total of 250.
Like per, are you, was that per month?
No, that was when I first got
Was that
started.
per month?
That was when I first got started. That's what I spent.
Okay,
So that took me to my first
gotcha.
deal. Yeah, that took me to my first deal. I didn't have to spend any more after that. Obviously I'm driving, so I paid for gas and that kind of a thing, but I didn't have to spend any more money on those signs. I had those all the way through probably my first probably four deals. I didn't have to spend anything. I was only out of pocket probably max 250. And going back to what you said about a goal, so wholesaling was important to me because my goal was I wanted to get out of debt, and there was debt that I wanted to get out of, and I saw wholesaling as the way to be able to do that, and I was able to do that in 2021 by wholesaling mobile homes. And Calvin's course was what I did to be able to do that. So I ended 2021 debt free because I honed in on wholesaling mobile homes, and I didn't do anything different with mobile homes until 2022. That was when I started to expand, but wholesaling is still the majority of my business. And it's what I did all of 2021 to get out of debt. So I know that's a goal for a lot of people. If that's what you're looking to do, then wholesaling is definitely a way to get that done. So yeah.
Look, and you can do it. I'm gonna tell you this: like if you're looking, if someone out there